The Atlanta Braves beat the New York Mets 3-2 behind what might be the most clutch outing of Dylan Lee's career. Let's talk about it.
This is the Braves POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to the Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball, the author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. That's Jake Mastriani, host of Locked On Braves. Follow him on social media at shortstopball. I'm sure we're all thankful he's back from his vacation. Hope you were well rested because your heart needed it today, Jake. The Atlanta Braves take down the New York Mets 3-2. I want to get to the offense, Ronald being awesome, Mr. Schwellenbach. But, Jake, we've got to talk about Dylan Lee. Comes out, gets a 4-out save, and his at-bat against Juan Soto, or his plate appearance against Juan Soto, might be the single biggest of the year so far, and just a masterful performance from Dylan Lee.
Yeah, and I know I kind of teed up that I want to talk about this, but I want to get to the steps before this too, because the way this game was going, it felt like a loss. And I kind of posted it out too, trying to hope to get the reverse jinx in there, and it worked. But it felt like an obvious 2025 loss was incoming from the moment that Soto hit that home run. Mm-hmm. And Carlos Mendoza, the Mets manager, he started going to his big bullpen arm. You saw him go to Reed Garrett. You saw him in the ninth going to Edwin Diaz. He smelt it. He smelt blood in the water. Yep. And the way the season has gone, you just figured, okay, here it goes. Braves, they didn't do enough early. They're going to blow this one late.
Yep.
And then you had that moment by Dylan Lee. Set up, Juan Soto, 2 outs, runners on the corners. Just what a huge pitch. What a big moment for Dylan Lee, who might just be your closer, especially after Iglesias, who he had to clean up his mess in this one.
Yep.
He might just be your closer, at least for right now. We'll see what happens. And I've said this before with Dylan Lee, the numbers have always been there. I mean, he has put up great numbers at the major league level. We just haven't seen him do this. We haven't seen him get those big outs against the top of the order in a tight game, in the ninth inning. We haven't seen him be able to get a 4-out save like this, much less a save period. So we just haven't seen it from him. But obviously the success has been there. But it doesn't get, in a regular season game on the road against your division rival, it doesn't get much bigger than that. Like I said, for game 60, whatever this is of the season, and to be able to come through and make that pitch. And it wasn't just that pitch. I mean, Soto fouled off some really good pitches in that at bat too. Like, he had to make perfect pitch after perfect pitch, because I think he and Murphy were thinking, we walk him, okay, you'll go after Pete Alonso, that's no big deal. And so he was just trying to make perfect pitch after perfect pitch, and he did. And to get Soto to swing at that, I mean, it was just, it's one of those moments you jump out of your seat. You still had the ninth inning going, so I was trying to hold back a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that was just, I don't know if it's hyperbole to say that's one of the better moments of the season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this very much felt like a playoff game. And it did last week too in Truist Park, but the sequence there, CJ Nikowski said it on the broadcast. Everybody knew Dylan Lee's in there to throw sliders to Juan Soto. Like, Soto knew it, we knew it, and so he gets behind early. He's down and away. Perfect kind of pitch to see if he'll chase. He doesn't chase. Gets him up in the zone on one on the outer third. Everything's outer third or farther, right? Nothing is above the waist. Like, the locations are great on this. And, they get 2 strikes. Soto fouls off a pitch or two. And so Lee gives them a thigh-high fastball on the outer third at 97. Soto has no clue it's coming. All he can do is foul it off. And then slider, exact same arm slot, drops below the zone. Perfect placement to leave it down where he left it. And it would have walked Soto if he had taken it. But because he had just gotten fooled on the fastball, he had to go for it. And it's just one of those things where, I feel like too often you see the Braves pitchers, and Pierce Johnson's a big example of this. They just spam the same pitch over and over again because Pierce Johnson's curveball works. Dylan Lee's slider works. And he sequenced it just right. And him and Murphy picked the perfect time to throw the fastball as a tendency breaker, but then still manage the locations on everything. Just fantastic. I thought it was absolutely great. I do want to get your opinion on something, though, because I saw a couple questions in the chat, and I wondered about this too. When they went to Raisel Iglesias for the 8th inning, the pitch count for Schwellenbach wasn't that bad. 89 pitches, 58 strikes. He didn't have a ton of strikeouts today. He was giving up some hard contact. All of the peripheral stats we'll get to in a second weren't great, but it almost felt like, do you maybe let him face, what is it? Who is it? At least face Torrens, maybe face Brett Beatty as well, and then go to somebody else? Why pull him at 89 just because the top of the order was going to come up in that inning?
Yeah, a little surprised. Beatty was the only one that actually had seen him well in this game. And so I kind of understand it a little bit there. Again, I would have put him back out there and gone batter to batter. And then if you put somebody on, go to the bullpen. I think there's also the scenario where you want to get Iglesias a clean inning, and I don't mind that either. So it's not, to me, an outrageous call. Like I said, because Beatty had seen him well in this game, and then you had the top of the order coming up. So I'm okay with the call. It's just your bullpen options you don't trust. And I trust Spencer Schwellenbach more than I do just about anybody coming out of that bullpen. But I don't think it's an egregious call here. I did want to go back to Dylan Lee, though, because Emmanuel Fuentes in the comment section made a good point, because the changeup that he threw to Pete Alonso as well to get the swing and miss. So you got the 96, 97 mile per hour fastball from Dylan Lee. You got that slider, but to also have that changeup that he can throw to righties. And he threw a filthy one to Alonso, who had fouled up a couple of really good pitches. He also was able to dot one to Taylor later in that inning. So to be able to add that changeup too is something else to throw to righties, which his slider is good enough. He can get righties out with that pitch too. He doesn't really have crazy, splits to either side. But I thought that was a good point by Emmanuel, because I was thinking about that too during the game. Him just being able, Alonso fouls off a couple of tough pitches, and then he drops a changeup, and it looked like he shook to that pitch too. So to be able to have the confidence to throw that to a really good hitter, I thought that was huge for Dylan Lee as well. Yeah,
it's just, this has been, I kind of like your point there of this might be like the breakout game for Dylan Lee, where now he's going to be considered the closer, especially since Raisel Iglesias, if you go back and look at the pitch locations, like he got away with leaving some stuff up that could have been rocked and just wasn't. Like Lindor's single was on a changeup below the zone, but what was that? I think it was on Torrens. That was a pitch middle, center cut that Torrens just happened to, I think it was a slider. Torrens just happened to get on top of and ground it out. So it does feel like Dylan Lee kind of ascended here a little bit. Schwellenbach pitching well. It almost felt like he was maybe trying to pitch to contact to go a little bit deeper. We saw a lot of this from Max Fried. Kind of felt like Schwellenbach was doing some of that. He didn't really get a ton of whiffs in this one. I want to say he had 5 whiffs and like a 25% CSW. They were just swinging on everything. And 41 swings by the Mets on 89 pitches. But Schwellenbach did enough. Dylan Lee obviously was fantastic. You come out of it with a win. I think the other big point here on the pitching side, we'll get to the offense in a second, is you didn't have to use anybody else. You got 7 innings out of Schwellenbach. And I think given, how the weekend went, having to do some, some longer outings and things like that, getting this sort of longer outing out of your starter definitely helps set up the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, and another point too I wanted to make on the Mets side of it. I mentioned earlier how they smelled blood in the water. They went for it, put their big relievers out there. Diaz had to throw 20 pitches in this one. So to be able to hang on and get the win, and you made them throw some of their better starters when they're getting a starter tomorrow who's making his first start of the season at the big league level, that's huge too. So that's another win for the Braves. But you're right, not having to use a ton of relievers. Schwellenbach going D, like I said, not a dominant start, but it's also seeing the same time, seeing the same team, twice in a week, and then just being ultra aggressive against a guy they know that's going to throw strikes. So that's just going to happen to him sometimes. But overall, I thought he was obviously really good, and the results were great as well.
24 pitches is tied for the second longest outing of the year for Edwin Diaz. He had 2 24-pitch outings back in April. So, this is tied for second longest of the year. He had a 30-pitch outing in April, too. So, he hadn't pitched in a couple of days. Neither had Reed Garrett, but you're still in a situation where you maybe get them once or twice more in the rest of this series. And if you get them twice, they're probably not as great of condition in that final outing you see them in. So that definitely does help there. All right, in just a second, I want to talk about the offense, the good, the bad, the Michael Harris. We'll do that next right here on the Braves Postcast. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Because Wonderful Pistachios, it's one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller for longer. It's these little green wonders pack a protein punch. If you are feeling a little down, a little hangry, maybe you just need some protein. Grab a bag of the no shells variety. You can just pop a handful of pistachios and feel better for your afternoon. Running errands, keep a bag in the car. It's incredibly versatile, incredibly convenient to get a little protein boost whenever you need it. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Jake, Braves scored 3 runs on 9 hits in this one, but I talk about this a lot, I know. 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. It felt like just so many missed opportunities to score runs by Atlanta. And I think this is what you alluded to when you talked about this feels like a 2025 loss for Atlanta. This game felt like it should have been 7-0. And it was just, 3-2 going into the bottom of the 8th inning. The offense was not there for Atlanta outside of Ronald Acuna Jr. kind of single-handedly doing everything.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you look at the top of the lineup in this one, and Ronald had 2 hits, Olsen had 2 hits, Ozuna walked twice, Riley had 2 hits. I don't know why Albies is batting 5th, but Sean Murphy had a hit, a walk, and a sac fly, and had some good at-bats there. So, the top of the lineup, did pretty well in this one. The bottom of the lineup was atrocious. Michael Harris, as you mentioned, he did have the sac fly there, and he had a bit of a tough break with a couple balls he put in play tonight. But Eli White, he didn't do anything to help his chances of playing every day, going over 4 with 3 strikeouts. Nick Allen did pick up a hit in this one, but it's just 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. Lindsay, it's just, when do they turn things around in that department? It was a problem in Miami over the weekend. You had plenty of chances. You have double-digit opportunities with runners in scoring position in all of those games, but you just couldn't get enough hits in those situations to really, pile on the runs. And like you said, this was a game that when Soto hit that 2-run homer, it felt like they should have been up 7-8-0 at that point. And suddenly it's a 1-run game. And that's what I was talking about with the Mets. They're thinking, well, we got a chance here now. We know we can shut down their offense. We just got to score another run or 2. And it shouldn't have even been a possibility, and it's just because, and we talk about it too, that sometimes they don't do enough early in the game. And this time they did, but they didn't do enough. And maybe that sounds like we're being too greedy, but you had Ronald on third with 1 out. He gets on, he steals, which is great. We're seeing him, third stolen base now, second stolen base in the last couple of games. We're seeing him start to use his wheels a little bit more. Matt Olson does a job. He almost puts one in the gap, but at least it moves Ronald over to third. And then a bad read by Ronald, I guess you could say there, not going home, but you don't capitalize in that situation. You got bases loaded. Murphy does get the sac fly, but again, you're hoping to get that big hit there to really break things open. And then you let Paul Blackburn get through 5 innings somehow. And it looked like I guess it goes 4 2/3. They did knock him out, but it just, again, felt like it could have been more. And then you do nothing from the 4th inning on in this game. And it's just, it shouldn't be this hard, Lindsay. It just shouldn't.
It really shouldn't. With the guys you have, because it feels like in just about every single inning, and obviously it wasn't every single inning, but it felt like that you had guys getting on base early in there. Like the first inning you talked about, Ronald getting there, stealing second. Ozzie gets hit by a pitch in the second. He steals second. Sean Murphy singles, gets him over to third. You get the Michael Harris sacrifice fly, but that's it. Eli White strikes out. Nick Allen strikes out. Ball's never in play. You never get any more runs off of that. Austin Wright, what was it? The 3rd inning, the Ronald homer, Matt Olson doubles, and they eventually get Olson in, but there was 2 more walks behind Olson, and none of those guys get in. The Sean Murphy sac fly brings 1 in. Michael Harris lines out, and you end it. Austin Riley later on gets a triple with a 1-out triple. Ozzie always pops out. You get a walk from from Sean Murphy, and then Michael Harris strikes out. It felt like Harris didn't get a pitch above the knees today, and yet he still swung at just about everything. And I have so many notes here about hey, this inning, runners on first and third, he strikes out at a pitch at his knee. And at this point, I don't know what you do with Michael Harris, because you don't really have another center fielder unless you play Eli White every day. do you have to wait for Profar to come back before you can decide to give Harris some time off to clear his head, or just what do you do here?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, because at the very least, he's giving you Gold Glove defense, but how many guys can you have in the lineup that are giving you Gold Glove defense, but are one of the worst hitters in baseball? You already got that, and you living with it with Nick Allen at shortstop, which I'm okay with, but can you live it with two guys there at the bottom of the order like that with Harris?
Kind of three with Ozzy. He's just also not giving you great defense. That's the problem.
And Snit's batting in fifth for some reason. So, I don't know. I mean, like you said, there's not really any other solutions. I know Carlos Rodriguez is down there at AAA. He doesn't have any power, and I don't know that he can handle center field. Look, anybody you put out there is going to be a downgrade defensively. Yeah. But it's bad. I mean, and I posted this too on social media. I think the frustrating thing with Michael is that we all keep thinking this breakout's coming because we figure that the plate discipline and the approach has to get better. It can't be any worse. And he's been good even with that bad approach that's always in there. But now the approach is just as bad, if not worse. It seems like there's no possible changes coming. It looks like there's no effort to change it at all. And he's just hoping that things are going to work out. And at what point do we stop just waiting on things to work out and get better? And at what point do we actually try to change our approach and change some things? Because there's no doubt he has talent. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's really, for me, just the approach. It's remained the same or gotten even worse for him.
Yeah. And I saw a tweet from a national sports writer from MLB.com today who was pointing out there that said, hey, do you think that there's now a book out on Michael Harris? And he was showing the pitch plot, and it's just everything's down in the zone or below the zone and he's chasing. So the most frustrating thing I think for me with Harris is, to your point, we've seen him be successful with this before, but I remember pulling the numbers like last week, a pitch in the strike zone, he's batting like 299. It's just, he keeps swinging like 45% of the time at pitches not in the zone. And there's your problem.
Yeah.
And that's the most frustrating thing here. I do want to give some props real quick to Matt Olson. That double play in the sixth inning, that was that was the game-winning defensive play for Atlanta, because Juan Soto gets the home run later, and that would have been a much bigger home run than it actually was. Gets a hot shot at first, taps on the bag, fires it to second just in front of the runner, and the runner was shocked that the ball was even there. He had no clue he was about to get thrown out at second base. Just fantastic defensive play by Matt Olson. He continues to be, he should win the Gold Glove this year. I talked to somebody during the game who covers the Arizona Diamondbacks and has covered them for the last few years with Christian Walker was there. And he said it was a debate in previous years. It's no longer a debate. Matt Olson's the best defensive first baseman in baseball. So credit to him on that. I wanted to give him a shout out real quick for that.
Yeah, no, that was a big play in the game because that was a point where Schwellenbach had kind of lost it a little bit. He ends up, even after getting the double play, the cardinal sin of walking Nemo and having to watch him smile his way to first base as he jogs down there. He just can't happen. And then you give up the home run to Juan Soto. So a huge double play there. Matt Olson, he doesn't get enough credit for his offense. He certainly doesn't get enough credit for his defense.
He absolutely does not. All right. So again, Atlanta Braves take game one, 3-2 over the New York Mets. Their winning percentage against New York it's just the absolute best in baseball right now. They cannot lose to New York, knock on wood. Tomorrow, Spencer Strider versus Frankie Montas at 7:10 p.m. You heard Jake mention it. They've used their good bullpen arms already. They went for it in the win and didn't get it. So hopefully Atlanta can knock Montas out early and get a little bit more damage in on some lesser arms in the Mets bullpen. Do us a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. Some kind words of affirmation would be great too. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to both Locked On Braves and Locked On Sports Atlanta. You get everything from Jake. You get the postcast. You also get the great stuff, the Atlanta Football Party, all the rest of the awesome shows talking about Atlanta sports. For Jake Mastriani, I'm Lindsey Crosby. This has been the Braves Postcast.